Hi all, welcome to the video. And in this video, I'll be recapping on some of my JavaScript knowledge, and that means that because I've been working very heavily with Java as of late, and as such, I haven't really had a lot of time to work with JavaScript. Um, I'm doing some React-based stuff now, but like 3 years ago, when I was working for someone, I was working at an organization that was like a JavaScript shop, completely JavaScript shop. So they were using Node.js for their backend, and then TypeScript, and then React, and it was all about JavaScript. But since then, I was working at a one of the big banks here, and then that was all Java, and yeah. So let's. I'll be talking about things such as promises, and maybe touch a little bit on the event loop. All right. So before I get on to that, welcome to the video. It's a cold day here in Sydney. Mate, seriously, this winter really is getting to me. I'm really sick right now, and I'm not sure this. I've got a bit of a swelling on my nose, and this entire day has been extremely uncomfortable for me. And recording this video is not the easiest experience either, and I couldn't get a good night's sleep last night. So I've spent the entire day looking like a zombie, and I'm sure I look like one right now as well. I mean, you could probably see the dark circles under my eyes and all. But anyway, it is a good day, and I've got some news from extended family that we did have some good news in the family. We've had a certain good event, so it's not all bad. I'm miserable, but my family has got something to celebrate, so that's good. But personally, for me, oh mate, it's just this winter. It cannot get over sooner. You know, in Australia, like July, or in Sydney more than any other place, July is one of our coldest months. Well, it starts to cool down end of April. May is a bit colder. June is quite cold, and July is the coldest. And then it starts it starts to get warmer from like mid August onwards. So yeah. Anyway, all that complaining aside, let's talk about the video. Now, oh god, man, even smiling is a bit difficult because I've got this swelling, and every time I smile, it just hurts. Oh, anyway, so we're talking about promises in JavaScript. So, what are promises? That's a really good question. I mean, I've been using promises for so long that it's really hard for me to actually put that in words of how to explain. Like to actually properly articulate the description of what a promise actually does. Let me think. How can I define a promise? So a promise is something that you could use to handle asynchronous operations in JavaScript. Does that make sense? Probably. So, okay. So let me try giving an example of what I mean. So you've got a web application, right? One of the highest priorities for you is to ensure that the user experience for that web app is as seamless as you possibly can make it. And now, in a modern web application, JavaScript plays such an important role, and a modern web app does like 100 different things. I mean, JavaScript can be used to help with some of the conditional logic of rendering, or something like handling certain uh, tasks to get data from the server, or set certain timers, or set certain caches, and with help in security and so on and so forth. So JavaScript is used heavily in a modern web application, and JavaScript is single threaded. So obviously there are limitations, to what you can accomplish on a single thread. Now, obviously this would be a logical step to get into the event loop, but let's pause on that here and let's finish talking about promises first. Now, like I said, a modern web application does a lot of things and it uses JavaScript plays an important role in it. Now, one of the things that it could do is that handle calls to the server, make calls to the server to fetch any data that it needs, that the web app needs to be rendered onto, onto the page so that the user can see. Now, for those of you who have used JavaScript, you probably know you use like a library such as Axios, or this is a library. This is something to make calls to the server, to the backend from client side. So JavaScript runs on the client side. It runs in a web browser, and then what you need to do is you need to make a call to the server that's a backend to get some information, get some data that you need for the web app to show to the user. Now, for those of you who've used who've worked with JavaScript, you probably use a library like Axios, Axios, or you would have, or if you're like me, you've used Fetch. Oh my god, I did use Axios before, but then ever since I first used Fetch, the Fetch API, you can look it up on like mdn.com. I mean, I'll put a link to that MDN in the description of this video. But yeah, Fetch API, that's what I use. Like ever since I used the Fetch API, I've never really used Axios after that. So this is purely just my own thing. I mean, they both do the same. They both accomplish the same thing. So Axios or Fetch, like what you do, you'd actually make a call to the server. Now, when you make a call to the server to get some information, get some data. Now, at this point, the last thing you want to do is you want to hold up the user and like freeze the page. That's a terrible experience. So what you do is you actually make a call to the server, and then that's it. Then you'll just leave it there, and then you'll just wait, and you will only do something when the server actually returns some response. So let me re-summarize that with an example to make it slightly clearer. So if a user is using a web application and then they want to search for it, your web application sells certain products, and the user searches for a product. Now, what that does is it would actually make a call. The JavaScript code will make a call to the backend, like fetch products, and then it will make that call, and then it would just wait. It won't do anything. I mean, once it makes that call, the application will continue to work as it is, and the user can do whatever else that the user needs to do on the site. But now, once the JavaScript code has made that call to get to the server to get the data, so once the server returns a response, that response will be, then the JavaScript code can use the data in that response to do whatever it needs to, like render. So that the entire process, when you first make that call to the server, you get a promise. Because you see, this is asynchronous code, right? You just make a promise. It's an asynchronous call. You can make a promise, and then once you get the response, then you can handle it in that promises then clause. You see, like because you would have seen like Axios or Fetch or whatever, like fetch something and then you have dot then. So once you get that data, then you resolve it in the then clause. So this in essence is what a JavaScript promise does. That's a JavaScript promise. Now, obviously, if you have like a promise, you're worried that what if the response that you get back, you need to do something else with that response. So you have another then clause and another then clause. If you want to do something else with the response that's returned from the that response too. So what I'm trying to say is, like, if you're thinking that what if you have to change like 10 different then calls, then you'll be in like callback hell, because each after you make a call you wait for the callback. So that's fine. I mean, modern JavaScript has a way of handling that too, with the async await keyword. So instead of instead of making a call and then resolving the response in a then clause, you can actually annotate that function with a async keyword, and then when you make that call to the server, you can just before you have that before you write it, you can just put await before that. So it will the code is a bit more sequential, and the code reads a bit more clearly instead of multiple then call. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Covering that async await is for a separate video. But anyway, so that's JavaScript promise. Now the event loop, I'll try to touch briefly on this, because event loop is 100%, it's like another 10-minute or 15-minute video. Now I mentioned before that JavaScript is single threaded. So what happens is, see, all of these things, JavaScript has this thing called an event loop. So it's like a call stack, right? It's like a stack is like a series of methods, variables, functions, and everything that you'll execute. Now an event loop is just, it's a queue of things. You can think of it as a queue of things that are to be executed in JavaScript. And the event, so for example, this is what let me think of a better, let me try to think of how I could put this. So you've got, like, say, function, all right, you've got a function, and you're making 5 function calls in that. So you've got function A, and within function A, you're calling function B, C, D, E. Right. So now, if for example, when you execute function A, and then in function A, within that you're calling function B, C, D, E. When you call function C, then if you put that in a set timeout, even if you put that timeout to 0 seconds or 0 milliseconds, you will notice that the order in which these things get executed would be B, D, E, and then C. The reason why that happens is because when you do set timeout, what set timeout will do is it will actually put that function C in at the end of the queue. So you see, when you declare the function, the way all of these things are meant to be executed, the way all of these inner function calls are meant to be executed would be like B, C, D, E. But then when you put like a set timeout for C, what JavaScript will do is it will just put it at the end of the event loop. So it will only get executed after all the others have been executed. So yeah, that's how like I said, I've just briefly touched on this. So most likely I'll make a separate video to cover this in greater detail, and to also talk a bit more about the async await and those things. So if this information if you feel this information was a bit brief and all over the place, well, please leave a comment and I'll create a separate video, and hopefully when I'm not as miserable with this pain. I can't wait for this winter to be over. Seriously, guys. Oh my god. Anyway, well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're all doing well, and until next time, I wish you well and live long and prosper. Ow, smiling has been very difficult. This thing.